Now, there are two things in life that I consider to be huge passions that I have. One is Japanese media, and the other one, though to a lesser extent, is Linux. So, of course, I was waiting for the release of Idle Showdown because the only thing I could think of was, will this run on Linux? For the past few days, I've done a bit of testing and tinkering around with a few configurations, which funnily enough, one of them actually led me to play Yakuza 5 without audio sync issues, but that's a completely different topic. As far as Idle Showdown, since this game was initially released, I was actually running into some issues with the performance. Now, one of them was actually a general issue in which star specials would drain the frame rate over time. Like initially it would perform just fine, but then over time, the more you played the game, the bigger the impact became. You would see the frame count drop by half or even more. This was an issue that was occurring across all platforms. I even tested this on Windows 11 and confirmed that yeah, it happened there too. The devs quickly acknowledged this issue, and as far as I can tell, I'm pretty sure this has been patched. But that's actually not what I was experiencing. What I was getting was something that was a little bit worse, in which the frame rate, regardless if I was in a match or in the main menu, would not stick to a consistent 60 FPS. It was constantly fluctuating, and initially I had assumed that perhaps it was because I had OBS recording the footage and maybe if it was causing some instability, so I closed OBS, made no difference. I then restarted the game without having OBS open at all, then pretty much closed every window available, and somehow I was actually getting worse frame rates. While before it would at least generally hover around the 50s, but now opening the game again caused the frame count to drop as low as 40 in some instances. Now you might be thinking, maybe it has something to do with your computer hardware not being up to snuff. Yeah, no, that's not it. Plus, I spent a lot of time staring at each individual core utilization, and it just didn't seem like any of them were being saturated. Like maybe if one or two got close to 100, I could probably believe that this was a case of a CPU bottleneck, but none of my CPU cores were anywhere near maxed out, so that couldn't be it. Now I might be thinking, well, isn't it because you're using Linux? Well, yeah, no shit. Of course it's because I'm running this on an operating system that this game isn't designed to natively support. But even then, I was still surprised by how badly it was running. This is not a very common thing to happen to me, especially with a game like this that shouldn't really be that demanding to begin with. So that's when I decided to do something a little bit unorthodox. You see, if you install the official Linux Steam client, you will mainly run games using a compatibility layer called Proton, which is generally good at running Windows games, but Proton is actually a fork of a different software called Wine, which can also be used to running Windows games. So what I did was I used Lutris, which you can think of as a more user-friendly graphical front end for Wine, and installed the Windows Steam client in order to run the game using Wine instead of Proton, and it's actually worked. Now, I'm going to give you a warning. Depending on your Wine prefix, this game is probably not going to behave properly, and that's because it's running under the Unity engine. And in my experience of playing games that use this engine, I've ran into weird crashes and missing graphical assets, and a lot of the times they could be fixed by just changing the Wine or Proton runner. It's never been something that I was able to exactly pinpoint the source of the issue. It just seemed like it varied a lot depending on the game. At least for Idle Showdown, the only thing I can say is that if you run the latest custom wine from Glorious Eggroll designed for Lutris, which as of writing this script it's 8.4, it's probably not gonna behave well, so I recommend testing older ones. I've been using the 7.37 version and I've ran into zero issues, smooth as fuck frame rate, so I would just say start from that. Although then again, you might not even need to do this anymore, cause recently the performance issues that I was experiencing with Proton have kind of been fixed. Now this game runs like a fucking champ, and I gotta say, I really respect the developers. They've been continuously patching the game up, fixing bugs, and even adding new voice lines after they were requested by the talents. And keep in mind, this game is free. It's a fan game. They're not even getting paid squat. So you gotta respect the mad passion these people have for not just the fighting game genre, but also for Hololive. Now, as you guys probably know, I like fighting games. It's a small little passion that I have, and as of right now, I'm still at the beginning stage. I need some time to get more accustomed to the combat system, as well as follow high level matches to get a better understanding of the meta. But as of right now, I really like what I'm seeing, and I'm very excited to see how this game will evolve. But beyond my fighting game interest, I'm also just mind blown by the amount of references in it. It's like Holocure levels of depth. Let's start off with the first character you select, Fubuki, and after you're done selecting the collab, she's eating a pack of burger, nice reference. You start lapping and then you realize, wait a minute, why do some of her specials suddenly get powered up? And then I noticed that every time it happens, it shows the SSR logo, meaning that it's based off of pure chance. And then I realized, oh my god, they're paying homage to her gacha addiction in her movesets. That's pretty cool. One of her specials is called a Yukuri face. This is based off of a Toho meme, and there was this one time Fubuki made an entire singing stream with that Yukuri face and speaking with a lazy sounding voice. That same face has also shown up in a hologram episode and now also in this game. And then there's her ultimate, which is her transforming into Kurokami Fubuki, which is kind of poetic because much like how in real life Kurokami only shows up once in the blue moon, we only get a glimpse of her in this game during an ultimate. Her voice also sounds super echoey, which almost gives this divine feeling, which it's cool. And then there's Tokino Sora, which I love how her medium attack involves a sword because canonically she's not a swordsman, but she did have a few episodes of Hologram in which she was holding a sword. Her 6H transformed her into a soda mascot, which is based off of a meme in which people call her Soda-chan or Sofa-chan. It's either one or the other depending on the mood. And then there's her star special, Raka-chan, in which she falls down, and it's based off of this one time when her phone, or at least I assume it's her phone that she uses for AR, the phone fell, and from our perspective, it looked like she was the one that fell, and they actually incorporated that into her moveset, which is it's pretty cool. But I think probably the coolest and most based reference that they made was in her superstar attack, in which a bunch of Soratomos start launching consecutive attacks. Now when I first watched the trailer for this game, one of the things I kept wondering was, is it me or are there 13 attacks in total? And if that was the case, I was just thinking, are these the 13 Knights? Now for context sake, the 13 Knights refer to the original 13 viewers that watched Sora's stream. They kind of have a legendary status because Sora was the first talent in Hololive, and despite the fact that the group has grown a lot in recent years, in the first few years, they were in the double digits when it came to consistent viewers. That's why they're called the 13 Knights, and after checking the hit counter as well as the description of the attack, yeah, my intuition was correct. Her superstar attack is in fact a reference to the 13 Knights, which is awesome. And then there's Korone, and first of all, I love how in her light attack she's wearing boxing gloves because of course she does, we know she has experience with training in boxing. She has a special called Super Koro where she powers up like Mario when he snags a mushroom. Makes sense, she does play a lot of classic games. Then there's her 214 special where she attacks you with a chainsaw, very appropriately named Dog with 2 O's. Dude, they even designed the chainsaw to have the same color scheme as the one in Doom Eternal. Now of course, as a Yakuza enjoyer, I couldn't help but notice that Coco's heavy attack happens to resemble Kiryu's kick. They even named her star special starting with Essence in reference to the names of certain heat actions. And then there's her 236 special in which she rides on a dinosaur, clearly a reference to Arc. And then she commands grab the opponent, followed by an image unique to every character, claps twice and chants next meme. Man, hearing this just brings me back to 2020. Also, love how there's a poster of Jaws with Gura in it, but instead it's written George, which is really funny. If you don't know what this is referencing, type Sakura Miko George. Speaking of Miko, love how her superstar collab attack is her spilling lava and panicking like she did when she burned her house in Minecraft. There's just a lot of really cool assists in this game. Kanata sings Soran Bushi, Amelia slows down time and starts doing her gremlin screech. They're all cool. Ayame's superstar special is her saying, which is cool enough on its own, but what makes it even better is the fact that there are multiple Ayames and they start doing the cartoony cloudy fight animation, which is clearly a reference of that one episode of Hologra. Shishiron Botan is an FPS beast. Pretty much 90% of her moveset involves firearms, but I'm glad they didn't miss out on featuring a shopping cart in her superstar special because, yeah, they had to. And then there's Akirose, who summons Mukirose, her avatar from Arc, every time she launches a heavy attack. And then there's Suisei. So where do I even begin? First of all, her 2M as well as her air mediums involves her using a firearm like a true start end member. Her legendary axe, The one and only weapon first manifested in Project Winter, the one game that popularized the Suikopath meme, is represented in her heavy attacks as well as her 236 specials, and I also love how whenever she uses her axe in any of her attacks, they're the only instances when we hear her psychopath laugh. Her air heavies involves her opening a BL book, of course, because as a fun fact, during her childhood years, whenever she started hearing and sensing weird haunting noises in her house that sounded like spirits, she would open BL books to exorcise any evil spirits because that's a thing, I guess. Speaking of BL, one of her alternative outfits matches the color schemes of Anemachi and they look strikingly similar. Her block sprite shows her holding a wall, although while I'm not sure if this was intentional or if it was a case of similarity, the color reminds me of those gray blocks that show up in the bottom of a Tetris match. And one thing about her skills that makes it so brilliant is that Suisei has a special attack that is activated when inputting 236 and then the grab command, and it involves her summoning an actual Tetris block that literally breaks the enemy's guard when they're blocking, the same way it would break those gray blocks during a game of Tetris. It's such a genius idea for a moveset customization given her expertise in Tetris. And then there's her ultimate, which when I watched her character trailer, I was like, holy shit. She sent a comet from the sky to strike the opponent, and then she finishes off with her pose from the Ghost music video, and I was like, oh my god, this is fucking awesome. All while we're hearing a beautiful rendition of the Celestial song in this well-designed stage with a crowd of fans cheering and a live chat appearing on the big screen. This game is fucking awesome. It's literally my new favorite game. Probably. I don't know. It sure as hell feels that way. Anyway, I think I've rambled enough. Now, will you excuse me, I have to download this game on my laptop in order to play this at 40 frames per second so that I'm able to practice this game even when I'm not at home because I'm that impressed with this game. Honestly, Idol Showdown is probably the game that has pushed me the most to consider buying a Steam Deck just so I can let this on the go. Anyway, that's all I have to share. Peace.